Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Chip Rogers, President and CEO of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's another Hotel Business Hot Topics virtual edition, but you're going to love this one, probably because it's the single biggest issue facing the industry right now. I can't promise you that all the news and information you're going to hear is good news, but I can promise you that it is information that you need for running your business. And that's what Hot Topics is all about. And we want to thank all of our friends at Hotel Business for making this platform available to all of us. Now, the wonderful thing about today's show is that we have an all-star lineup of people that are going to provide with you an insight as to what is happening right now today and where we are headed on, again, the most important issue facing our industry right now, which is labor. And in most cases, the shortage of labor. So joining us today, and by the way, now that I've done 1,000 of these and all I do is stare at a computer screen, I got to wear these, right? David Martin, COO of Vision Hospitality from the wonderful city of Chattanooga, Tennessee, which we love. Michael George, CEO of Crescent Hotels and Resorts. Del Ross, the Chief Revenue Officer for Hotel Effectiveness. Del is Mr. Statistic, that's for sure. And Rob Dann, the COO of Highgate Select. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today for this important topic. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about who's making this possible. It is Hotel Effectiveness. Thank you for sponsoring this event. When you think about what we've been through the last year or so, and you think about the companies that are still sponsoring and supporting our industry, I'd say those are the companies you need to keep in mind because during our toughest times, you certainly find out who your friends are. All right, so this particular program and the information that comes out of it will also be in the print version and the online version of Hotel Business for August. And you can find that, of course, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those social media sites. And again, thanks Hotel Business for giving us this platform. All right, so gentlemen, 6 months ago, we're all sitting around wondering, when are we going to get back all the customers? And now they're all wanting to come back and stay in all of your outstanding hotels. And we're sitting around saying, where are all the employees? This has been a really weird recovery. It has been regionalized. It started a lot earlier in some places like Florida and Texas and Arizona, but it is full force across the country right now in just about everywhere except for a few select urban city centers. And now we're faced with this problem that was a big problem, and I know Del has numbers on this, a big problem before the pandemic. It's even worse right now. So let's jump into our first question. Leisure travel is our saving grace right now. There's no question about it. As you guys know, the leisure traveler is different than the business traveler. And so there are some who suggest that what we're seeing right now is this leisure bump that is going to end after summer. And then we're going to be wondering, what about business travelers? So before we even get into how many people we need to service these guests, let's talk about what you are seeing in your hotels, what you're seeing coming your way. Does this leisure travel bump last beyond Labor Day? And if it doesn't, what does the industry look like beyond Labor Day? I'm going to throw that out there. In fact, I'll start with Rob. Rob?
Well, it's interesting. I think you can really bifurcate the country, really by our different classes of hotels. I think the big CBDs, take New York, San Francisco, LA, et cetera, they're experiencing something completely different than what we're seeing in Boise, Idaho, Missouri, et cetera. Our 250 select service hotels, for example, are coming back extremely strong. I was just looking at data this morning for the month of July. Our ADRs are actually up $12 over 2019. And our occupancies are up 5 points over 2019 as a portfolio. Now, across the full service hotels and these CBDs, completely different story, down significantly. We still have assets closed in Manhattan, for example. Some won't open until after Q1 of 2022, but very different there. So the question is about business travel. I think, we've seen some statistics out there, 50% down in May versus 2019. But when you look at it, it's more of the holistic look of 50%. In the tertiary markets and the select service brands, it's not nearly as dramatic. We're down 25% in May. And in the extended stay hotels, it's only 20%. So I think there's a difference in demographic of this business traveler that we're talking about. The international business traveler is going to be down, we think, for a fairly significant amount of time. We don't see it until Q1, Q2 of 2022. In Q3, Q4 of 2021, we're seeing a fairly significant increase already in our booking patterns on business travel in these smaller select service type assets in tertiary markets. I think with the bump that we're seeing in the leisure market and the decline in the business travel in tertiary markets, I think you're going to equal out. We're thinking that our Q3, Q4 numbers are going to be 9 to 12% off of 2019 numbers, and we think we're going to catch up in 2022 very quickly. And that mix of business between leisure and business will change for sure. But the dynamics of the business travelers, they want to get back out there. They're desperate to get back out there. And I don't know how many of you have been out and traveling. I happen to have been traveling now for months on a weekly basis. Planes are full. The airports are absolutely packed. The TSA counts are way up, some higher than 2019 levels. I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think, Chip, in Q3 after the kids go back to school, is what we're saying in our organization. But you will see some very different results in these big CBDs. I think you're looking at quite some time to see that business travel back to its pre-pandemic level in the big CBDs.
Thanks, Robin. I'm not going to get my soapbox, but you mentioned one thing, kids going back to school. They all need to be in school. It's ridiculous. The kids weren't in school. Absolutely absurd they weren't in school, but that may change travel patterns this year as well. Michael, what are you seeing in your portfolio? Are you concerned about post-Labor Day, or are we going to be okay?
Rob just talked about a lot of the key statistics and data points that are of interest, I'm sure, to everyone. I'll just sort of boil it down more. Just, in our arena, Crescent operates 120 hotels, predominantly full service in major markets and resorts. And yes, leisure has been great. We do anticipate leisure is going to take a bit of a softening, but we think remote work and travel will continue. But we anticipate corporate coming back nicely this fall. We see that by our booking pace, from whether it's corporate related, association related, SMERF related, but all of those aspects we're seeing coming as we roll into the fall. So we're quite optimistic about it. I mean, it's, to your going back to the original question, Chip. Yeah, I mean, we're anticipating leisure is going to pull back a bit, but while we do see corporate business out there right now, we think it's going to come on, quite aggressively once we get past Labor Day.
David, what are you seeing? I know that Vision has a lot of,
and we're predominant, our organization's predominantly in Southeast, select service, lower key counts. We're not quite as dependent on the group business that both Michael and Rob are. So we're finding our RFP season for corporate transient has been pretty strong this year. I think people want to get back. So we feel pretty optimistic that the business transient business will help us throughout the rest of the year and into next year.
David, let me do a quick follow-up with you on that. I know you have a lot of properties in the Atlanta area, and as someone who is in Georgia quite a bit, I know the governor and his team have been proud to say that Georgia's been open for business the entire time. Did you see an impact by that type of policy decision where Georgia and Tennessee, where a lot of your properties are located, were able to kind of weather the storm a little bit better?
Well, we've been strong this entire year. We're, as Rob mentioned, we're exceeding 19 occupancy and average rates this month, but it's been a very strong climb, closing the gap between 19 and 21. So we are in those two cases, both Tennessee and Atlanta. The only hiccup we had was in the urban downtown. We have a property downtown that suffered more in its location, like any other major city, but the rest of our tertiary markets did very, very well.
So Del, you're the numbers guy, and you look at the numbers across the whole country. What are you seeing? Is this boom as big as we think it is? And how long is it going to last?
How long it's going to last is a bit up in the air. We track the market we do get data about occupancy and top line revenue. And it tracks pretty closely to what STR and CBRE track. Our data comes from about 5,000 hotels in the U.S. and Canada, good cross section of the country. What we see that's unique is the labor. That's what we're going to be talking about quite a bit. And the data there, it does point to a strong recovery. We've actually picked up more than nearly 1.5 million jobs since the beginning of the year, which is pretty awesome. I actually have a chart here to talk about this. And in the last couple of 30 days, we've actually added about 300,000 plus jobs, which is great. We still have over 2.4 million jobs left unfilled, and at this point, we don't think that we're going to see a whole lot more gain in the job count after August. We think if at best it may stabilize, which is what it did last year. It all kind of depends on whether corporate comes back. If it comes back in full, we're probably going to see continued growth towards employment recovery. If it comes back with at flat level or a slight decline, we're still going to need a lot of labor because corporate travelers tend to travel in different patterns than leisure travelers. But it won't continue this upward trend in employment that we've seen.
Dell, question. How do you compare same store staffing comparison as it relates to pre-COVID, post-COVID? Because for us operators, we're going to, we'll be able to fully staff our hotels, but we're not going to staff them the way we did pre-COVID. Right. So if you compare us to pre-COVID, same store comparison, we'll never get there intentionally.
Well, let me also throw in one more variable, if you don't mind, Dell, and thanks, Michael, is also currently we're pretty reliant in our housekeeping departments on contract labor where we were not pre-COVID. We had all of our own employees. And so what we would like to do is obviously get those people back to us. And so we would be hiring more, we think, once school gets in session, the kids go back to school, and the subsidies end for staying at home.
Let me just jump in real quick too, Dell. I agree with Michael 100%. I don't see us getting back to what I'll call pre-COVID staffing models. There's going to be some sort of a hybrid model going forward, and we're looking into things like no brick, which I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. We're doing a pilot with Marriott. They've got 20 hotels going out. Basically, it eliminates the buffet area, cuts down on FTE count. It'll put a breakfast item in there that they can pull out and scan. It's in the 2 pilot test hotels they've already put it into. It's definitely lowered FTE count. It's definitely lowering the food cost. And I think those are some of the initiatives that you're going to see going forward. And so I'm not sure how relevant the pre-COVID versus post-COVID labor models really will be. I don't think they'll ever match up again. That's my personal opinion.
I think those are all really fair points, and we don't really know. We do know, and the data behind me is talking about the hours per occupied room pre-COVID, through COVID, and today. And what you see is actually we went from an average of over two hours.
Just to that point, though,
room. Yeah.
Dell, we know we're not going back to pre-COVID staffing levels. We're going to run our businesses differently. So, in all due respect, as an operators, we know we're not going to be operating that same way.
I hear you. And I think there was waste in the model. And we preach that all the time, that going back to old school static methods of planning and managing your staff, looking at the same ways of working is a terrible idea. And whether it's data-informed decision-making for true dynamic staffing, or it's just process re-engineering, like we're talking about the processes that servers and banquet attendees and front desk people and room attendants use, there's lots of room for improvement. And that will yield good changes.
And I think what's going to be important is measuring where we get the efficiency in our industry.
Yes.
And I know working closely with Chip and the association, we talk about it all the time. And that's what's good to share for our audience and others is, okay, we're not going back there. We're not going to, obviously the labor market's going to come back because of supply growth and the industry is going to continue to grow and prosper. So we'll be a major employer and, we'll continue to hire more within our industry, but same store, we're going to be more efficient. And it's always good to talk about where we're going to be more efficient.
I think it's just a question of how much of this savings, this hours per occupied room as one great gross expression of this is going to be sustainable. The thing I wanted to point out is that the savings during COVID came from 2 things: the elimination of stay over clean, which is 10 minutes per occupied room, and elimination of almost all food and beverage, which is 20 minutes per occupied room. Both of those, the food and beverage jobs will come back. Will they come back to 20 minutes? Maybe not. And if we do our jobs well, then perhaps they come back to 10 or 15. Stay over cleans are not going to come back to where they were 85% of transient stays and 65% of extended stays used, stay over cleans. That's not going to come back, but it'll come back somewhat. So we're not going to see this 1.4 hours sustained. That's not possible. It is unlikely to go back to 2.1. And what's really key is we actually have to know what we should be comparing ourselves to. We need benchmarking data that we've never had before. And that's a big opportunity to use pooled data in a different way than we've done before.
I agree with you, Dell. Let me just say one last thing, Chip. I agree with you 100%, but on what Michael has said, I think is exactly right. Look at the airline industry. You know, I always compare us to the airline industry. We're way behind them, always have been. You know, in the last 4 years, I haven't talked to anybody in the airlines, right? Everything's on my app. I scan in, I go through TSA that way. I mean, their headcount is significantly down. And that's the model we need to be chasing. And that's why I bring up this no brick concept, for example. We should be doing the same thing with automated check-in. I mean, Ian Schrager's put it into his hotel already. He was testing it way before COVID ever hit. Those are the things that are going to be put in place. And you're right, Del. We're never going to get back to 2.1, but it's going to be somewhere, obviously, between 1.4 and 2.1.
So I love guests that are fully engaged like you guys because it makes my job a lot easier. But it also allows me to go off script here. You brought up two topics I would love to have your input, and this is from limited service all the way to resort. And Del mentioned this, food and beverage. What is it going to look like moving forward? Because there's a lot of food and beverage jobs that have not been replaced, obviously, in your big box urban city center hotels. So that's number one. And number two, housekeeping. What will daily room cleaning look like? What percentage of rooms will be cleaned on a daily basis compared to 2019? And I'm going to throw that out to any of you since you all are good at jumping in.
I'll jump in real quick. And, you know, I know Rob and David have got some great insight on it. But, you know, we're a big food and beverage operator. You know, we have a dedicated restaurant group and division, and we're really pro food and beverage. Now, for many of our operations, it's probably going to be beverage and food. And we love that, and we're programming towards that. But there are more foodies now than ever. And we know that if we want the guests to stay at our hotels, we got to lead with food and beverage or beverage and food. You know, if you think you can skimp your way through it and do a grab and go and do a scaled back menu, you know, you're going to get what you deserve. If you're more bold about what your offerings are and how you present it and the quality of it, there is an ROI of that. You know, it's going to take a little bit longer, but they're out there. They want to eat there. They want to dine. They want to stay. In this digital age, where the decisions are all made based on what they view and see before they reserve, you know, if you aren't leading with food and beverage in your reservation process, you're missing a big opportunity, especially as a full service hotel, of course. I mean, as Rob can speak to, even the, you know, select service hotels, they scaled way back too far, and the good operators push right back anyways, regardless of what the brand says. You know, we want to give you the full offering because we know of who we're competing with. So I think that's going to be there. In the housekeeping piece, we're already bringing it back to daily cleaning with luxury already. You know, upper upscale, we're doing what we call a tidy up now already, you know, and, you know, yes, we're doing all opt-in. And I think, you know, opt-in is probably here to stay, but, you know, it's really going to be a situation where, you know, for, again, upper upscale luxury, you know, that housekeeping aspect, whether tidy or full cleaning, you know, is, you know, going to be there, you know, an important part of the stay. Rob, David?
You opened up a whole can of worms there, Michael. There's no doubt about it. I agree with you 100%. You know, I think and I'll stick with the select and extended stay world right now, even though, you know, we cover the gamut. In that world, F&B is definitely going to change. And again, I should be getting commission from No Brick here, but with No Brick concept, literally people typically when they go down to these buffets, they take huge plates of food and they take it back, especially in an extended stay type product. Here you have a barcode reader on everything. Even though it's a $0 amount because it's part of your package, you have to scan it in. And it's embarrassing to stand up there and scan in 65 muffins. So they're not going to do that anymore, right? So that's naturally going to shrink back down. And if you can have a system where you can load this machine, for lack of a better term, with a more efficient FTE system, that whole system is going to change. So it's basically a grab and go. It's a fancy grab and go is really what it is. And I think the world's moving there. And you see it, I'm sure, Michael, in the full service world. right? Grab and goes are the way to go, right? Little markets within these big full service hotels is where people gravitate towards. And the margins on them are great. So as operators and owners, we're pushing more towards that. Room service is another great example, and I keep using Ian Traeger because I think he's still ahead of the rest of us. He's got that, knock and drop concept, right? So if you stayed in a public hotel, right, you order room service, it's on a shelf downstairs. You get room service, you go down, you pick up the bag, and you go back to your room. It's eliminated labor, which is the biggest cost of the whole thing. It's made a much more efficient system. Those are the kind of things that are going to be happening so that we'll never get back to where we were before. But I think it'll be driven by consumer behavior, I guess is where I'm going. And that's where the consumer behavior seems to be.
David, select service, food and beverage.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rob. I mean, we have not embarked on your model yet, Rob. So I'm anxious to learn more about it. But currently, on a select service level, we have reduced from the competitiveness of every brand and putting in 65 items out for everyone to take. We've limited to the high quality, to the hot item, and we've made sure that we controlled it so that it's just not this. Everything imaginable under the sun is available for the entire time in which it's your breakfast is open. We believe in the quality quotient, absolutely, but we're trying to limit the quantity so that it's just not a complete competitive giveaway, which has really been killing our bottom line for years. And the brands keep upping the number of items that they want, year after year, quarter after quarter. So I think hopefully those will be permanent changes that will be able to reduce that. But Rob, I'm anxious to learn more about what you're doing.
As soon as I sign my commission deal, I'll
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I want to create a perfect segue to Dell because I can see his slide behind him. But I want to ask each of you, have you been tracking the percentage of people that opt into daily cleaning? And if the answer is yes, what percentage are opting in?
34%.
Wow.
As of within the last 30 days. So, and you got to keep in mind, what's the average length of stay based on the hotel. So obviously, for urban or resort, but, for your typical non-resort hotel, average length of stay of 1.5 nights, 34%.
Rob, David, that sound about right to you guys?
Yep, that's right on for us as well.
Yep. All right, Dell, segue right into you. I can see it. Percentage rooms cleaned of rooms sold. Tell us about it. You're on mute.
Thank you. I guess I should. I'm going to get a T-shirt that to commemorate COVID. It says "You're on mute." This data behind me just shows the pre-COVID and then beginning of this year, post-COVID, percent of rooms cleaned out of sold rooms or out of occupied rooms, and it reflects exactly what we're talking about. It's a function of two things: not having stayover cleans, and at the beginning of the year we had basically no stayover cleans, and those are coming back. And length of stay. And during COVID, those who were traveling tended to stay a little longer, almost more like leisure guests versus the transient stays. What we have seen, and I don't have a chart for you, is departure clean times are way up. They are up through the roof because these leisure stays, they tend to be higher occupancy rooms, like quad occupancy. Used to be a thing you only saw like at soccer tournaments. Now it's like everybody bringing their families. And because they haven't had anybody come in and empty the trash and clean the rooms, the departure clean times are really, really high. So the savings we're experiencing from housekeeping are not directly proportional to the elimination of stayover cleans because it's being made up on the other side. Now, as business comes back, as corp travel comes back, and they weren't that fond of stayover cleans anyway, we don't know if they're going to behave differently when they're in the room, if they're going to consume more stuff and use more towels. We don't know, but we're going to see what that looks like.
Another off-script question for you guys, but you're so good at it. I feel comfortable and confident asking this. We've talked a lot about the things that are changing, and some of it is designed to meet the needs of the guest, which will require fewer employees. Some of that is just necessary because of where we are in the labor market. But at the end of the day, we are the hospitality industry. Are we worried at all about how it may affect hospitality? Because we're different than Airbnb, where no one's there, no one's going to give you breakfast. And if you have a problem, no one's going to show up. how do we hold on to that special hospitality feeling by having slightly fewer employees?
I'll jump in and say I think it's, again, bifurcated across the system. So you talk about Michael's portfolio, right? He's got big box full service, resort locations. I think they're looking for an experience, right? Go to a resort location, you want to have a relationship with a bartender while you're there for 5 days, et cetera, et cetera. When you're in a what I'll call more quick serve type hotel, right? A select service hotel, you're in and out, you're staying at a courtyard, you got a business meeting. I personally, when I travel for business, I don't want a relationship with a guest service agent. That's not why I'm there, right? I use mobile key. I get it all set up with my assistant before I get there. I really don't have the time, because I'm an efficiency freak, to spend with an employee to explain what I want. I explained it before I get there, and I think that's very typical. I got some statistics across from my salespeople this morning about Gen Z. Right, so Gen Z is coming along. In the next couple of years, they're really going to drive that consumer behavior. There's 68 million in this Gen Z category right now, right? They're kind of mid-20s, going to get into the late 20s here over the next couple of years. They're not into the whole relationship thing either, right? So I think you're going to see a real shift there. But, and again, not to reiterate the point, but you get into these full-service luxury, 5-star, 4-star, even if it's a CBD or a resort location, I think it's a completely different game. They are there for the relationship. They're there for the ambiance, and the associates are part of it. So we can't lose sight of that. And hospitality is key, and that's what differentiates us. No doubt about it. I think it's going to be very select, Chip, but I think it's in different pockets.
Yeah, and I think the comment I made from an employee perspective, hospitality will never die. I mean, the passion for the industry, the passion to serve is going to remain strong from my perspective. The people that we have, they're working really hard, but they're really passionate about the needs of others. I think we're going to continue that as an industry, to your point, Rob, with less people wanting it. But I think what we're offering is going to still be that emotional connection with the people. We can't lose that as an industry, and I don't think we will. I think that's inbred in those that choose the industry.
Well, I do think, though, that I agree with you completely, David, that there's the passion there from the associates that want to be in our industry, but COVID did two things. COVID spooked them about job security. Candidly, before COVID, they really didn't worry about it. I mean, it was just, it was a very consistent, strong industry. COVID spooked all colleagues in the industry about, that work in, especially in the food and beverage sector, but in the industry. Secondly, we came on really strong as it relates to protocols. And, Chip and I, have good discussions about the protocols, and I'm not a doctor, but, I wonder in hindsight, when we look back, did we come on too strong? But I will tell you that we scared off many of our associates that didn't want to work in that environment, didn't want these big barriers in front of them, didn't want, the types of, attire that they had to wear that, we just didn't know any differently. I've noticed a huge difference in, just their attitude, their morale, and everything else now that we have transitioned out and loosened up the protocols and allow the, environment within the hotel to be more welcoming for our guests and more user-friendly for our associates. But we need to let them know so they come back in. Okay, it's not like it was, and we're seeing it, in the airlines are still like very disciplinarians, and Rob and David have their private jets, but I'm still the road warrior out there in the friggin' airport. It's just like, it's not fun, it's like, put your mask on, and if you aren't actively eating, put your mask back on, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's obnoxious. It's like, thank God we want to travel, because the airlines say they want our business, but I guess they're having to do what they have to do. But we need to make it, so that it's, more pleasant. It's like both whether, certainly we are in the hotel industry, and Chip and his team have done a great job there, and the brands are on board with that. And hopefully the airlines will, loosen up here. I think, Chip, isn't it like September? They're revisiting their protocols sometime?
They are. It can't be soon enough. I mean, yesterday I took a flight, Michael, to your point. As I was getting out of my car, in my head, I'm like, I'm putting this mask on to go in the airport, then I'm going to be on the plane, then I'm going to be on a train. So for like the next 4 hours, I got to wear this thing. And it just kind of weighs on you. You're like, oh, geez, can we not get past this? But, a really good point. I mentioned this to somebody yesterday, is that if you go back to March of last year, we're running around as an industry and as the CDC saying, clean every surface as much as you possibly can, but don't worry about wearing a mask. That was actually the message last March. And it's amazing how that has flipped, because the science has flipped. We've learned more about it. I think that's the most important thing, is we've learned how to live in this environment, and hopefully things will continue to improve. The topic of this whole thing is labor, of course, and we can't get away from the fact that even despite all the changes that we've just walked through in the last 20 minutes, the efficiencies we've learned over the last 18 months, there's still this enormous labor shortage. We at AHLA, we started a pilot program about 5 weeks ago. We're in 5 major cities, doing everything we can to learn why people aren't coming into the industry, learn what we can do to keep those people. We're even hosting a hiring fair ourselves for the industry in Nashville this coming week. It's our first of what will be a series of 5. But what I'd like to hear from you guys is, and Del, please chime in here, are you guys hearing anything that is working, that is actually moving the needle for both acquiring new talent and holding on to new talent?
I can tell you that we're not holding on to new talent very well. And I think that Rob made a great point. We have a lot we could learn from the airline industry about processes, use of technology, efficiencies. We can't learn a thing about them about service, because it's at its best, it's terrible service. We know service, but the people we've been bringing on board in our industry, in our mad rush to bring on jobs, we brought in 1.49 million jobs since January in our industry. And these are not people who worked in hospitality. They're not motivated by the desire to serve people who need a place to stay. They're new to the industry, and they're quitting fast. They just are. This is the turnover data for line level positions, housekeeping and laundry attendant and guest services. They're really, really high. They're always high. They're higher than ever. And then the really grim news is on this side, the manager turnover we talked about a bit. Assistant GMs turnover has gone from historically about a third of AGMs leave the industry. They quit their jobs, leave the industry. Now it's 80% in the last year, the annual run rate as of June. And for managers, it's over half, from, again, about a third every year. This is bad news. And it shows us that we may be hiring like crazy, but we're not keeping.
See, I'm not seeing that at all, and so I'm not really sure what the broad range is, but, I'm not, especially there's a surplus of management talent, and we're finding we could be more selective than ever as relates to management hiring. And if you have a great culture and, a strong organization where it was all about promotion from within to begin with, and you have a track record to demonstrate that, such as Crescent does, we're not losing, the AGMs and others, because they know what their career path is and they're committed to the industry. So I would put management in a separate tranche as you have. As it relates to the other turnover factors, the number one reason for turnover is the lack of consistent hours. That's a problem. You bring them back, we're slow, we ebb and flow in the industry. You can't do that to them. So, we have to make sure that, these people, if they're going to give up their unemployment benefits, which, thank goodness that's becoming much more, available to us, or we can be able to, give them, get them in, and then we have to, make sure that we're taking care of them with the appropriate hours. We can kick that around more, but I think, again, happy to go deeper into the associate work environment, but on the management side, if an organization is having trouble filling the management positions, then I think they got to look internally as it relates to, their company culture and, how they, approach business.
Michael, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say the exact same thing. We haven't had that issue at all at Highgate. And my opinion to the HR people is they're like, oh, look how great we are. We retain all our people. Everybody wants to work for us. I said, don't fool yourself. We're a growing organization. That's why they want to work for us, right? We bought 197 hotels. We have 353 hotels now. They know there's a path. So they want to work for an organization where there's a path. So I think where you're getting this high turnover is from those organizations that really didn't do well during the pandemic period, right? The organization shrunk. They lost hotels. They got foreclosed. They lost management contracts, whatever it happened to be. people get very uncertain. Now you've got a pandemic going on. You're not quite sure whether you're going to keep your job or not. You don't know if the hotel's for sale or if it's going to go away. That's very unnerving. And I think that created incredibly high turnover in that management position, as well as the GM and above in the corporate level. We at Highgate are just not experiencing that either, Michael. So I'm glad to hear you say that. Now, when you get down into line level employees, we've had two different issues. One has been very stable. So our extended stay hotels, for example, we have 60 residence inns. We ran 73% in 2020. We didn't lose people because there was work there. There were hours there, to your point, Michael. But you get into the courtyards, right? We have 54 courtyards now. Courtyards dropped dramatically in occupancy, and now we're trying to bring everybody back. It's very difficult. So we've had to go to hiring bonuses and stay bonuses and all these things that everybody else is doing to try to attract talent. But it is, I believe, 100% what you said, Michael. It's about culture, and you have to look internally to your organization. We haven't had those issues at all. We have people actually flocking to us because they see what we're doing as an organization. And so I think it's really, almost company by company.
David,
and I would agree with both Rob and Michael. Where we've struggled is having the time on the property level for the recruitment and the onboarding because of the multitasking that every one of our people and managers are doing. So it's not, because I'll look at Indeed and I'll see 30 applicants that need to be responded to that want to work for us in a particular location. And it's really carving out the time. So things that we've done is we've brought back our corporate recruiter. We're allocating so many hours a week for our properties to dedicate to recruitment, follow-up, and onboarding because of trying to allocate additional labor to those functions, because the people wanting to work for us, it's just difficult for the property that the GM is closing, doing the night audit and doing the schedule and getting the financials out on time and everyone in between. So it's really the tasks at the property. Or someone asked on the chat about stress with the manager. Yeah, I think the managers are, and there's a lot of burnout right now. And I think the burnout's causing it more than anything else because of the demands that are being required today.
I did want to just amend the data. First of all, the reason that one of the reasons you guys are perfect for this panel is this chart doesn't reflect you, right? That's good. So you have a lot to share. The other thing that's behind, at least the line level position turnover rates, it is new people who are quitting faster, right? And this goes to what David was just saying. It's about onboarding and about giving them that spirit of hospitality and that sense of purpose and growth. New people are quitting really, really quickly. In about 3 weeks, if you're a housekeeper, in about 6 weeks, if you're front desk, they are getting burnt out super fast because it wasn't what they thought it would be. They came in chasing what are currently some pretty attractive wages, and they leave fast because we don't have time to make them love us. And that is a big story. But the data we have, this is best practices and worst practices all mixed in together across a nice cross sample. This is reality for North America right now.
I think that's very true, Dylan. I think some of it comes from what I'll call new industries, right? If you can go to Amazon in a procurement center and make $22 an hour, or be a housekeeper and break your back for $12 an hour, it's an easy guess on where you're going to go. So that's definitely a dynamic that's happening. And like I said before, it's this what I'll call line level associate that we really struggle with. And I think that's what you're seeing across the industry.
I want to go to you in just a second about wages, but before we leave this topic of keeping employees, I'm going to put David on the spot here because I have talked to your CEO for hours and hours about the culture that he created at Vision years ago, and he was always so proud of the retention rates that you guys have had. Could you share a little bit about that culture and even pre-pandemic, what was working to keep people at Vision?
Well, I'm sure it echoes space with Michael and Rob. We spent and have invested a lot of money in training and development of our people, giving them a career path within our organization, strong, solid culture of recognition, appreciation. We have an internal communication on everyone's phone that can read all the messages that gets pumped out every day, every celebration. So there's a strong culture of just recognition, appreciation, and showing love for every one of our employees. And so I think that and having a career path, as both Rob and Michael said, your companies are growing, so is ours, not at your pace, but we provide upward mobility for our staff and our people, and we demonstrate that every day. We've got a high percentage of internal promotions that continues to fuel the desire to want to work for us because people can come in at a level and move up. So it's really a gracious culture of appreciation, showing love, appreciation, and respect all the time, and being doing what we say we're going to do every day.
I think that's the signship of great company. Obviously, it's been great for them. Where ours is very similar. I can't speak for Michael, but when the times were really tough in the pandemic and it first hit, unemployment checks, I don't know if anybody remembers this, were very slow coming out. We put $500,000 into a fund, came right out, wrote a check for $500,000 and said, just start giving these people money because this isn't right. Government can't get them unemployment checks, that they shouldn't be starving because the government can't get their act together. And we bridged that gap. So it was a decision that was made in 30 seconds by our founder in a meeting. I was on the call and he said, well, just put $500,000 and start giving it to people. So we've given out almost $400,000 of it and just gave it to people. And when other executives in the company found out that we were doing that, we all gave our own money as well. And so 10% of that money came out of our own pockets as executives too, because we wanted to make sure these people were taken care of. That doesn't go unnoticed. And it's part of a culture of an organization that it's longevity. Our average corporate employee is north of 9 years at Highgate. We have people that live and breathe the company on a daily basis. I can't imagine being anywhere else. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this panel. It's the truth. We have very low turnover in our corporate environment. And it's very tough to kind of break into this cool kid table. And the growth that we're doing is proving it. It's worked really well. So I echo what David's saying. It's all about being real with the associates, taking care of them when times are tough, giving them a path to grow, and they'll stick to an organization that has those kind of cultures.
Michael, what's the cool kid table look like at Crescent?
Well, both David and Rob bring up many great points, and the organizations that are struggling now were the organizations that candidly, they didn't have the reputation pre-COVID. They weren't the employer of choice. They didn't place the importance of culture. It's an industry, and, I've never worked outside of this industry, so I'm only an expert on our industry. But since my teenage years and beyond, it's very obvious, there's the good guys and there's the other guys, and the good guys know how to take care of their associates. They know how to be able to create a quality work environment, which we call an oasis within the hotel, respectful, provide the tools, appreciation, not very complicated. Hard work does pay off in our industry, but there's so many people in our industry who just talk the talk, and boy, can they talk it, but can they implement? No. And those people, those leaders right now, they're struggling, because they didn't have the foundation in place. They got beat up during COVID. They laid off a substantial amount of leaders. They're trying to recover now. Yeah, business is getting better. They have pressure from outside investors or shareholders, but they got a mess. They're a mess. And so, for organizations such as, Rob, David, others, we're not alone. We build a strong, organization, strong for it to begin with, not perfect. But be able to get mileage off of that as we move ahead. And so I hear people all the time talk about the labor market, and my general managers, they know, don't complain about the labor market to me. I mean, it's like there are plenty of associates out there. Every one of the markets where there are plenty of associates. We just have to be the best employer in every market that we operate. And what are you doing to make sure that we are the best employer in every market that we operate? If you're just, complaining about it, you're useless, to the Crescent cause. And so, we like these type of challenges. I mean, if running a business was easy, everybody'd be successful. This is what separates the good operators from the great operators. And so, bring on this challenging environment. Because again, I think, high tide floats all boats. Well, right now, the greaters stand out. And so, we'll be able to, leg it out. And if you're a great operator out there, take advantage of this. Take it on enthusiastically, and you will, get a direct benefit from it.
So, Del, let's talk wages for a second. There was a nice statement here, and a question about wage costs going up. That seems obvious given the fundamentals of supply and demand, but how much have they gone up? And then I'd love to hear from everybody else. Is this sustainable? Have we established a new floor?
Wage growth is expected. We hired a lot of people in a very short period of time, and a lot would argue that we might have been underpaying a lot of people in certain roles pre-COVID, and we're just kind of catching up a little bit, considering the fact that we had a million unfilled jobs before the pandemic hit. That being said, it is hard. We're trying to attract people who have not, in general, worked in hotels before for these line level jobs, and we are paying more. This is the data, recent data for housekeeping. It's actually gotten worse from an employer standpoint, or better from an employee standpoint. Wages are way, way up, and we have plenty of leisure markets, destination markets, where housekeepers are starting off at $20 an hour or higher, and we're still having trouble filling these jobs. Contract firms, by the way, we're all using them. They are, in fact, having the same problems we are, and they're paying these high rates as well, which means the contract wage rates are north of $30 an hour in many markets. So wage rates are through the roof. One thing we have found is that's not the answer to getting people to come on board in most cases. It's not really about wages. It's about what are the other things in the market. Where if Amazon's opening a distribution center, paying $25 an hour with benefits day one, you're competing with Amazon. You're not competing with the hotel down the street, right? And we always have to remember that. And that kind of goes back to the onboarding thing. You can hire them for these high wages, but if they don't stay, then it hurts you once again. And refilling a position just once in a year adds 30% to the cost of that position. So having up-to-date wage data is really important. Knowing that you're on market or on strategy for that is really important. Doing it legally, especially with the executive order just signed this week, is really important. And just for everybody out there, if your GMs are calling around other hotels asking what they're paying, they are violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. Tell them to stop. It's a crime. They shouldn't do it. It's wage data is super cheap. We sell it as an annual subscription for $240 a year. Just do that and stay out of jail. But wages are astronomically high.
To the audience, though, I think just going back to the difficulty in bringing in, let's say room attendants as an example. It's interesting. We find that 80% plus of our room attendants, they want to be a room attendant. So it's they enjoy the work. They take a lot of pride into it. What we find when we're being able to bring them back, some from worked with us previously, some that we were recruiting, is you got to keep in mind, again, that work environment. Are you offering them any type of food? It's amazing the number of operators that have eliminated any type of associate meal altogether. And of course beverages. What are their working conditions as far as uniform, par, tools to do the job? The compensation piece is just another big excuse area because the turnover factor is so much more expensive than what the appropriate compensation should be. Many of them want part-time, and so the part-time piece, though, is for many employers is you don't get any benefits, though, because of that cutoff and the cost of benefits. And again, the cost of turnover far outweigh, bringing in a benefit piece. So, really, you have to, you can't just be so, tunnel vision about wages, because we were probably too far behind, or undercompensated for very, important and demanding. We all talk about the housekeeping heart of the house. We all know that we would close as soon as obviously housekeeping doesn't show up for work. So we need to compensate them accordingly, but there's just the other ancillary factors that I would really encourage you to layer into it. There appears to be a cost, but man, you will reduce your turnover. You'll stabilize the team. And they also have a network. They talk and they bring their friends in or family in and, not give it 90 days and you can build a strong team. You got to take bold steps.
Rob, David, you want to jump in on that?
I was just going to say the same thing, Michael. I think you're 100% accurate. The first thing I was just thinking as you were talking, the first thing we do when we buy a hotel or take over a management contract is we go to the heart of the house and we look at the employee break areas. It's kind of funny. It's a habit of mine now. I walk through the front door and I see, take me to the employee cafeteria. The first thing we do is put a fresh coat of paint on it. We look at the locker rooms and we dress up that area of it. They're a mess. And you wonder why the management contracts turned over, right? Oh, we can't get the associates to do anything. Well, you're not treating them correctly. Let's start there.
Right.
So
Right.
I agree with you 100%. Compensation, the way I look at it is it's a total comp package, which includes the financial portion of it, but also includes the work environment, the support, the management environment. To me, that's their entire comp package. If they're treated well, they're part of a family, and they know they have growth and they have potential to go to different levels if that's what they choose to do. In our organization, what's become very interesting is we're now in 35 states. These people can now easily migrate across the country if they have a change in a family dynamic or whatever's happening, and we don't lose them. So sorry again, Dell, to be the naysayer on your statistics, but I don't have those kind of problems. I have a GM this morning I was chatting with who's going from the East Coast to the West Coast because his wife just got transferred. We just dropped him into a different hotel. 0 turnover. So I think it's a total, like I say, comp package, which includes the environment, Michael, you were talking about. I agree with that 100%.
It also does include pooling labor and being able to share labor across markets and show that you have a path for people who are willing to relocate for growth. But one thing, I don't have a chart for this. Utilization of our staff today is actually very, very low. People are surprised by this, but across the industry, we only about 74% of employees are getting 40 hours a week, which strongly suggests that there are hours in our existing staff, but we don't necessarily know this because the way we build schedules with using old school schedule like last week methods, we just ignore that. We slot in what that was, and we don't really pay attention. If you're looking at $15 an hour in 2 places, and one is giving you 40 hours a week or more, and the other is I don't know how many hours you're going to get, more than 30. Well, it becomes pretty obvious to these guys that even simple math is simple for everybody. They know what more is, and more hours plus a higher rate is pretty compelling.
All right.
It varies by the associate. Don't assume that all associates want 40 hours. They don't. And the flexible employer, that adjusts to the associate's lifestyle and their personal needs and balances, is the employer that's going to win.
Agreed. We actually launched a new feature about finding coverage, and it throws out an open shift to the teams, and they can pick up a shift based on what's available. And then it's entirely perfect where people work with the shifts that they want to grab, right? And the shifts get covered more effectively. It also encourages cross-training, which is the other big opportunity we have. More cross-training means a more interesting job, and being able to do multiple jobs across multiple hotels just makes it that much more interesting and breaks up the tedium. It also gives you a chance to expose people to a culture in a management company by letting them experience multiple managers in different environments and really see, hey, everybody's great here, right? And that is another opportunity to win.
And the only point I'd make, if I could, is that's one of the silver linings of what happened in COVID is that those core people that stayed in those hotels, whether they were chefs or directors of sales, all had to learn every position in order to be the contributor that we were searching for, and they all did. So it was great to see, an engineer learn how to check someone in at the front desk, and a director of sales, stripping rooms and folding laundry and so on. So it was really, I think a benefit was, I think we went back to our roots for a period of time and learned, and reinforced the basics across all spectrums of our management and employment teams.
Yeah, I would add one more thing to that. I think just understanding human nature, when people cross-train and learn new things, they inherently understand they just became more valuable. And everyone wants to feel their own worth, right? So knowing you went home today, having a greater understanding and more job skills than when you started the day, that's pretty good, right? And I think people appreciate that. We are almost out of time. This has flown by. Real quickly, I'd like to hear a couple of stories. During this pandemic, there's a billion reasons to feel bad and to worry about the things that are happening. There's also a lot of reasons and examples of people who have done amazing things in your own companies. Give me a couple of those uplifting stories as we close this episode. I'll start with you, Rob.
We put a thing in place called Highgate Heroes. When it really started to hit, the first thing like I said earlier that we did was replace this unemployment lag, for lack of a better term. Then we started to realize that across our portfolio, we had a tremendous amount of nurses and doctors and that were staying across the entire portfolio. We have 43 hotels, 15,000 keys in Manhattan. We had a tremendous amount of people staying in several of the hotels, filling them. And there were so many stories, Chip, I can't even go there. So we created a thing called Highgate Heroes. We started recognizing all of these medical workers that were on the front line. We get it now because it seems like it was history, but it was scary. March, April, May was pretty scary in 2020 because we didn't know. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know how bad it was going to be. Manhattan just shut down, as we all know. And these people were true warriors. And so we've rewarded them with vacations to Hawaii, all sorts of different things to just thank them for everything that they've done. The stories go on and on and on. And I'd hate to take just one and focus on it. It's incredible what these medical workers did on the front line. And as a company, we tried our best to make it a little better for them.
Amen to that. They didn't have the option of staying home. They showed up for work, and we are all indebted to them.
Absolutely.
Michael, what about you?
I agree with Rob. I refuse to answer this question on any one specific example or two because I know I will get in trouble. It's a classic opportunity for me to get in trouble when there's so many examples that I should be calling out. And there are, these are Crescent heroes. We promote and champion them through our Crescent Connection communication piece. I'm proud and honored to work with every one of them and thank them all. Our industry are heroes, and Chip, you and the industry have done a tremendous job as it relates to how we've, leaned in, to be able to assist society, and, even against all of the, negative marketing that, comes our way, all the, marketing professionals seem to like to talk about the doom and gloom of our industry, but there's, so many good people doing so much many great things. And we'll be back, and we'll be back stronger than ever.
Amen to that. David, what about you?
Well, I agree with both of them, but we do have one story here in Chattanooga that was really cool. One of our GMs sponsored a food bank in her hotel and had the entire, we have a cluster of hotels here in Chattanooga, strong presence, and all the employees and managers were able to contribute and we added value to that by sponsoring the food bank. This was open to the public. It was for our employees and to the public. Those in need had a place to go to pick up the essentials that they would need to make a dinner or personal hygiene items that were necessary. And that went on for about 4 months in our organization until all the catch up on the compensation and unemployment got settled. But there, to your point, there's earlier in March and April and part of May, it was a struggle to get needs met. And it was really cool to see the city come together and be spearheaded by one of our general managers. So we were very enlightened. They also were recognized at our virtual 2020 annual conference that we did virtually, and they won an award for that as well. And compensation in which she received in the award, she donated back to her employees. So it just continues to show the character of the people.
Great job.
Love stories like that. Del, any closing words from you, my friend?
Well, one of the things that the benefits of the pandemic is we get a little recognition in our industry for the incredibly important purpose that we serve. I joined the hotel industry. I came into the industry 20 years ago, and I was warned that if I stayed in it for more than a year, I'd become a lifer. I thought it was garbage at the time. Turns out it's absolutely right, and it's because what we do matters. It's critical. We provide that essential function. And we got recognized during COVID. Our workers got recognized as essential workers in our economy during that time. And these people were as scared of the virus as everybody else. They were scared and they didn't know what happened. And they had to interact with strangers for a living. That's terrifying. And yet they came to work. Those who could, who we were able to keep on board, they came to work. They served these guests every single day, knowing they could get sick, knowing they were at risk, and they did it every day because they knew that what we do matters. And to me, that is heroism in its greatest form. And that is part of the reason why I've stayed in this industry for so long and plan to be here for the rest of my life.
I couldn't say it any better. Well, gentlemen, thank you, Rob and Del. And And David and Michael, you guys are true leaders in our industry. Thank you for spending an hour with us today, a little over an hour. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I also want to thank Hotel Effectiveness, who is the sponsor of this program today, and our friends at Hotel Business who make all of this possible. We will see you again very soon, and enjoy all of your trips and vacations and stays at hotels. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chip.
Thanks, Chip. Great job.